everyone. I continue on the lesson. So here we have this example, which is just the height of an object after t seconds is given with this equation. So we have this equation. So the height is minus 16t squared plus 25t plus 50, and that's the t is time. So per the seconds, or for example minute, or but here it says just the height is in feet. Okay, so I have the unit of that, and t is second, and I have this equation. And then it says, like, how long does it take the object to hit the ground? So when the object hit the ground, so this means hit the ground means h equals 0. So means I want to find where and what is t that I can have this quadratic equation equals 0. So in another word, I am looking for roots or solution for this quadratic formula. So you have to search for two numbers. If you multiply them, it is multiplication of this and this, which is minus 800. And if you add this, it's 25. Okay, so when you multiply, the result is minus 800. And if you add them, so the result is 25. We cannot find that number. Okay, means we cannot factor. Okay, so I read the question, I understand what is going on. I have the height, I have time, I want to know when hit the ground. Hit the ground means when height is 0. So I want to find where and when, in which time I have this equation equals 0, this quadratic equals 0, means I am looking for roots, I am looking for solution. So the only way I know is by graphing. I don't see any graph. Another way I know is by factoring. I cannot factor. Okay, I cannot find any two. So what should I do here? So I want to find the answer here. I cannot factor. So the first method is if you can factor and then equal 0, and then you can find roots, okay, that make the equation equal 0. If you cannot factor, you have to do something else. So before I go to the next method, the second method, I like to do this example, and just which is a word problem, and then I continue. Okay, the length of a rectangle is 3 centimeter more than 5 times the W. So the length is, if I was in front of you, I was able to show you with my hands. So I read it once. The length is this, and if the area is this, what is the length of the rectangle? So we are looking for L. So also after L we can find W. That's the question. So I read the question, understand the type. It's so I have two equations, two unknown. I want to find the answer. Okay, so then I read it for second time and translate. When I translate, if you could see me, I use my hands to show you, but here I just show it with writing. Okay, so so L is 3 centimeter more, 5 times W. So L is up. I can have two hands. L is up, one of them up, one of them down. Okay, so you either add to this one to go to L, or you subtract from that one to go to that 5W. So you either subtract from L, how many? 3 centimeter to be equal 5W, or you add to 5W. Okay, so because sometimes when I give this question, a student, when they read, they say, okay, length is 3 centimeter more, they add. So L plus 3, so do you know what I mean? But it's not L plus 3, no. Either L minus 3 is 5W, or 5W plus 3 is L. Because L is more. The one which is more, my age is more than your age. Okay, so if I add to my age, so it will be so much, just a big difference. So I either subtract from my age to be your age, or I add to your age to be my age. Okay, so here you do that, and then okay, you would say, okay, so I understand what's going on. Now I can write two equations. So before to write two equations, I have to define my variable. So maybe I can say here, doesn't matter, I can use L and W, so I don't need to define them. Okay, so L minus 3 is 5W, and L, so sorry, L multiple W, because that's the area, is 92 centimeter squared. Okay, so right, so here I have two equations, two unknown. Then I can say L is 5W plus 3, right? Yes. Okay, so I can substitute this here. Okay, so 5W plus 3 multiple W is 92. Oh, perfect. I have 5W squared plus 3W minus 92 equals 0. So I have one quadratic formula to just one quadratic equation to solve, and I just know factoring, so I try to see if I can factor. Okay, so I read the question, I understand the type, then I read it for second time, translate sentence by sentence. I can define my variables. I can say L is X, so W is Y, or I can use L and W, doesn't matter. So then I write two equations, two unknown. In order to solve, I have to use substitution method. Okay, so I do that, and then I have a quadratic. So because this is not linear, look at this. I have L multiple W, that's not linear. Okay, so I can just do a substitution. That's easier for me. Okay, so now I look at here. So I am looking for two numbers. If I multiply them, the result is where's my calculator? Okay, so 5 multiple 92. Yes, 460. If I add them is 3. Okay, what can I find? So here I have to try so many numbers. Okay, I can, but 23 and minus 20 is the answer, because when I multiply, it's 460, must be minus 460, sorry, because it must be this multiple that, yes, and when I add them is 3, yes. Okay, so now I can just do what I can do with the one that A is not 1. Okay, so this is the complex one. Okay, so 5W squared, okay, plus 23W minus 20W minus 92 equals 0. Okay, so now from these two I factor. So 5, can I do, no, I factor W, 5W plus 23 minus, I factor 4, and it is 5W plus 23. Am I right? So 4 multiple 23, yes. Okay, so now it is 5W plus 23 multiple W minus 4 equals 0. Okay, so I have 5W plus 23 equals 0, and I have W minus 4 equals 0. So here W is minus 23 over 5, which I cannot accept, because when I talk about a rectangle, WL must be positive. Otherwise, it doesn't make any sense. That I cannot have a rectangle with negative length, like negative width, doesn't make any sense. So I don't accept. So W is 4. W is 4. Then I can substitute and find L. Okay, so where is it? W is 4, 4, and L is 5 multiple 4 plus 3, which is 23. So 23 what? I have to read the question. Centimeter squared. So this is centimeter and this is centimeter. At the end, I have to write a sentence. Okay, so that's that here. Now I can go to the next technique, technique number 2, which is completing a square. Completing a square, here I can do it with completing a square. Okay, so completing a square, I will explain. Look at this. I have this equation. Okay, I want to solve. Then I say I am looking for two numbers. If I multiply them is 1 because of this. If I add them is 4. I cannot find these two numbers. It's impossible. So I cannot go by, okay, one second. I cannot go by, what? I cannot go by factoring, right? I cannot go by factoring, so I have to do something else. So what should I do? We cannot do by factoring. I don't know. Okay, so I just ask you something. If I add x squared plus 4x plus 4, if I add 4, what happened? Okay, you would say, okay, I know I can consider this and this, and I can say it is x plus 2 squared plus 1. Okay? Oh, it's easier for me because then I can put equal 0 and I can find the answer like those examples at the beginning of the lesson. So then you would say, but you changed the question because you added 4. Okay, then I say, how about when I add 4, I subtract 4 at the same time. In this case, I didn't change my question. If you add and subtract at the same time, if you multiply and divide at the same time, you didn't change your question. That's perfect. Okay, so yes, how about I use these 3 and I use these together. Okay, so this is x plus 2 squared minus 3 equal, so I can say equal 0. Oh, very perfect. So it's x plus 2 squared equal 3. And then I have x plus 2 equal plus minus radical 3. And then I have x equal radical 3 minus 2 and radical 3 plus 2. Oh, sorry, minus radical 3 minus 2. Okay, so so yes, square root of 3, square root of 3 minus 2 and minus square root of 3 minus 2. Oh, perfect. So what did I do here? What I did is completing the square. I added something and subtract the same thing because I didn't want to change my question. So I didn't do anything wrong mathematically, logically. But when I did that, I was able to have something completing a square, something which is squared. Oh, perfect. So I have complete a square in a bracket. I have a number. I can find the answer. Easy. So now, how do I know which number I have to add? So here I told you 4 and minus 4. So how do I know? Okay, look at this here. So maybe I can do that. How about this? Okay, so x plus 2 squared. Okay, so it is x squared plus 4x plus 4. That's why. See, when I see 4x, I know I can add 4 because of this part. So how do I know then? Okay, so I look at the one beside x, divided by 2, and then a square, and then add and subtract. Add and subtract at the same time. Okay. So, but look, here you have 1 here. What I'm doing is because I have, so what I'm doing here is for the one which has 1 there. Okay, so I talk about if there is no 1 here, I talk about that later. Okay, so just pay attention. Okay, so if I have 1 beside x squared, because when I can do like x plus 2 squared is this. Okay, perfect. So I can just look at the one beside x, which is 4, divided by 2, which is 2, then a square, which is 4. So add plus 4 and minus 4 at the same time. How about if I don't have 1 beside x squared? I tell you later. Okay, so now I want you to make these complete a square. All of them here. Okay, you look at this is 1. Perfect. Look at the one beside x, minus 6, divided by 2, minus 3, squared, 9. Add and subtract. So I add 9 minus 9. So it is x minus 3 squared minus 9. So these together, and always the positive one there. Always the positive will be considered. Because when I use Pascal, always the last one is positive. I have x squared, I have the number squared, and I have the middle one, which is either positive or negative. Okay, so how about the next? Okay, look at the one beside x. Why? Because I have 1 here. So minus 8 divided by 2 is minus 4. Then I do a squared 16, and then I add and subtract. So I add 16 and minus 16. And then together I consider this, which is x minus 4 squared. X minus 4 squared and minus 16 beside. So now if I want to solve this and I cannot factor, I can easily solve it because I put equal 0, I put 16 the other side, I use radical, and easily can be solved. How about here? I look at this 2. Divide by 2, 1. I do a squared, 1. So I add plus minus. So I add 1 minus 1. So it is x plus 1 squared minus 1. See, here I am doing completing a square. Okay? So now it is showing it what I did show you here. It's showing you from just the other side. And then you can just say, okay, so I want to solve just to solve it and show the answer. So for example, if I receive this, I can just add so I can just add 4 and minus 4, and then okay, so maybe I do it here. Okay, see, x squared plus 4x plus 5 equals 0. I cannot go by factoring, so I use 4. I divide by 2. I do a square, which is 4 plus and minus 4. So it is x squared plus 4x plus 5 plus 4 minus 4. Okay, these together, right? Oh, I have minus 5. Sorry. Minus 5. Okay, so maybe I change the color. Minus. So here, okay, so it is x plus 2 squared minus 9 equals 0. Easy. So x plus 2 is squared equal 9. So x plus 2 equal plus minus 3. So one of the answers is x equal 3 minus 2, which is 1. One of the answers is minus 3 minus 2, which is minus 5. Yes? And here I can go by factoring. This method, yes, I use this method for this question. And at the beginning I told you I cannot factor because I wanted to show you this method. But here you can factor. How do I know I can factor? Because I don't have any radical in the answer. Okay? So that's good because I learn I can use this method for factorable and non-factorable for all of them. I can use this method for all of them. So if I can factor, I can go by factoring. If I cannot factor, I go by this method. But if I factor, I can go by both methods. Doesn't matter. Either factoring or this. This method works for both of them. Okay, so factorable and non-factorable. So at the beginning, I said I cannot factor, but I could. Okay, so I just wanted to show you this method here. Okay, so now how about this one here? Okay, so this is 6. Oops. Do I have 1 here? Yes. This is 6. Okay, so I use 6 here. Oops. 6. Divide by 2. 3. S squared. S squared. 9. Plus minus. Okay, so it's x squared plus 6x plus 6 plus 9 minus 9 equals 0. So this, and this together, this together. So it is x plus 3s squared. How do I know 3? I look at 9. 9 is 3s squared. Okay, so I look at this. I use this one here. I use this one here. So I don't do magic. When I divided by 2, I use that number. That number I divided. Look at here. I divided by, so I have 4. I divided by 2, so I am using 2 here. Look at these 2, and I am using 2 here. Okay, so now minus 3 equals 0. So x plus 3 squared equal 3. X plus 3 is plus minus radical 3, and then x is radical 3 minus 3, and x is radical 3 minus radical 3 minus 3. Okay, right? So 1 second. Yeah. Okay, if you leave your answer this way, that's exact. But if you use your calculator to find the answer, so radical 3 minus 3 is around to 3 significant digit is minus 1.267. The other one is minus radical 3 minus 3, so which is minus 4.732. So I underline that, check that, I underline that, check that. It is almost minus 1.27. This is minus 4.73. So these are the answers. If I say what is the answer, just for example, rounded answer. Otherwise, no. So I just leave it with exact answer. That's exact. When I see radical, that's exact. When I see bracket, exact. Okay. Yeah. So yes. Okay. So 1 second. Yeah. So now how about this one that I have 2 here? Oh, this is bothering me here because I have 2 beside. Oh, what should I do? Okay, so far I just did for the one that has 1 beside x squared. What should I do for this? So I stop here and tell you this in the next video. So this one is I'm not sure, video number 2 maybe. I lose the track, that's video 1. Yes, so this is number 2. So I want to, so remember, if I can factor, I can go by factoring, or I can go by the second method, which is completing a square. If I cannot factor, I just can go by completing a square. So this is video number 2. So I look at the 1 x squared. When I see the x squared beside is 1, I look at the one which is x. I divide it by 2. I remember that number because this goes inside my bracket. So I square and I add and subtract. Remember, when I add and subtract, otherwise I am changing my question. And then I just make it completing a square, and then it's very easy to solve. If you see your answer with radical and leave it as radical, that's exact. If you find the answer using calculator, you are rounding. If you see radical in your answer, means you cannot factor. If you see just whole number, means you could factor. It was factorable, but you didn't want to do it. Maybe I tell you go by this method. Maybe I force you to go by method number 2. Sorry, technique number 2. So then you could do that. Okay, so I continue in the next video. Thank you so much. Bye.